Good morning, everybody. As Friar Peter said, Brother Nick, the vocation director for the Friars, currently home-based in D.C. Many years prior to being vocation director, I taught high school for 9 years up in Buffalo, and for one of those years toward the end, at the annual dinner auction as the big fundraiser, a bunch of the moms got together, and one of the auction items was a brand new puppy. Golden Doodle, black Golden Doodle, great dogs, they're amazing. And they bought the dog and decided the Friars needed a dog. It was epic. So for a year we had Cupertino, was his name for St. Joseph of Cupertino, Cooper for short. And he was pretty good, but because the Friars left every day to go over to the school, as a puppy, he got a little bit lonely, and so he'd be just barking non-stop, and we couldn't figure out why he just wouldn't learn how to be a good puppy. And one of the Friars who lived there that year with me said, well, have you ever seen the Friar who was kind of the point person for Cooper, have you ever seen him respond to the barking? I said, well, no. He said, you just have to check it out, you just have to watch it. I said, all right, great. So Cooper's barking, and the Friar, who's the point person, goes and hands Cooper a treat so that he stops barking because he's distracted by chewing, tells Cooper to sit, and then once he sits, the Friar in charge says, no, bad dog. And the other Friar says, do you see anything wrong with this order of operations here? This is why Cooper isn't learning anything. The order of operations is important. First things first, second things second. Today we celebrate Divine Mercy Sunday in the church, a recognition of the tender love and compassion and boundless mercy of the Lord. It's a good opportunity to take a look at two important M words in Christian spirituality, and what is their proper relationship? What is the order of operations between them? The first word is mercy, showing compassion and love towards someone, particularly when you could otherwise crush that person. The second word is metanoia. It's a fancy Greek word to whip out at parties to impress your friends. Meta, change or transition, like metamorphosis. And noia from nous, mind, a change of mind. Turn your head towards that toward which you're supposed to be looking. We might replace the words mercy and metanoia with compassion and conversion, and ultimately those mean the same thing. There is a proper order of operations between these two realities, between mercy, compassion, and metanoia, conversion. I think one of the big ills of our culture today, we see it across different realms, church, politics, interpersonally, is that we screw up the appropriate order of operations between those two things. We tend to expect metanoia first, and then once metanoia happens, we'll deem to follow that up with mercy. If you just believe the right thing, then you can become part of the club. If you just change this little flaw about you as a person, then I'll consider, I don't know, dating you or something. If you just fix this incorrect political belief of yours, then I'll bother interacting with you as though you're a person. We treat other people as little projects to be fixed. Once you fix this messy thing about yourself, then I'll have compassion on you. Then I'll relate with you. Then I'll interact with you as another. The order of operations in the Christian economy, and really in every world religion ever, is the opposite of that. That mercy comes first, and then metanoia follows. That God bestows His love and His tender compassion on us without our having to do something first. We see this in today's readings. Jesus has just experienced the darkest side of all of His disciples who abandoned Him and betrayed Him and run away from Him, and yet He comes to them the evening of Easter Sunday with the message of peace be with you. Hey, what's up? And He gives them this commission to go out and he comes back a week later, and they're still in the same place. He's like, peace be with you. Go out. He doesn't wait for them to have a change of heart before coming to them in mercy. We see the same thing in our Franciscan tradition. Behind me is the Crucifix of San Damiano, one of the big conversion experiences of Francis, and that's coupled with the other famous conversion experience of Francis is his embrace of the leper. And you see different orders of those things in different versions of the story. I think the one that makes most sense is first, Francis has the experience in front of the cross of San Damiano. He is a broken, battered failure of a man when he goes into the chapel of San Damiano, and he kneels in front of that cross, and he has an experience of Christ speaking to him, giving him a particular message, calling him. And in the midst of that brokenness, he experiences Christ's embrace from the cross, and the only thing he can do is respond to that by sharing that mercy and embrace with other people. And so what does he do? He goes and ministers to the lepers. When we allow ourselves to have an experience of God's mercy, undeserved and overflowingly abundant, the only legitimate response is to then take that experience of mercy and share it with other people, to bring them our mercy. And so the challenge for us that arises this Divine Mercy Sunday is twofold. One, to pay attention to those moments in our lives where God is already sharing his mercy with us. You don't have to beg for God's mercy. You don't have to ask for God's mercy. He's already doing it. He can't not do it. You just have to become more attentive to the ways that God is already being merciful to you. That's one. And then two, who's a person, or what's a situation in my own life that I'm doing the wrong order of operations, that I'm waiting for someone in my life to change, to fix themselves, or maybe I'm trying to do the fix, before I enter into some sort of relationship with them, before I treat them as a person deserving of my compassion and mercy. Who is that person? What is that situation? And how do I respond to it? In the training of the Christian spiritual life, the correct order of operations is mercy first, metanoia second. Point of personal privilege, because I have a microphone and it's on. I have a job as vocation director, is basically to live in my car and drive up and down the East Coast, visiting our places and meeting with young dudes who might be interested in being a friar. So I come to you with a homework assignment. I've been here before and I've given you this same homework assignment, but repetitio est mater studiata. Repetition is the mother of learning. So it's a homework assignment in 3 parts. Are you ready for your homework assignment? Silence is consent. Number 1, think of a young man in your life who, when you think of him, you think he has what it takes to be a great priest, an awesome brother, a swell friar. That could be your son, that could be your grandson, your cousin, your nephew, maybe your dating guy you're trying to get rid of. It could be you, to the young men in the room, it could be you. Think of that young man, who that person is. Step 2, tell him that. Don't keep it a secret that you think he'd make a great priest, brother, friar. Tell him, hey, I think you'd really be good at this, even if that's you saying it to yourself in the mirror. Hey, me, you'd be a great friar. And then step number 3, which I think is the most important one, tell him why you're telling him. Identify the super specific, concrete gifts you see welling up within that young man that moves you to say, I think you'd make a great priest, brother, friar. There's memes about what it is for a man to receive a compliment every now and again. So think of a young man in your life who you think would make a great friar. Tell him that you think he'd make a great friar, and tell him why. And again, young men in the room, don't be afraid to consider the possibility that that young man in your life might just be you. That we need more guys to join us in our mission, which is ultimately helping those around us to become more attentive to the outpouring of God's tender compassion and mercy already happening in their lives, and to then be conduits of sharing that mercy